Good morning, everyone. Hope you're all having a wonderful day today. Today, we're going to be taking a look at a very silly concept. This is my mini SPR. But before we get into the video, if you want to help me out personally, you can, of course, like, share, and subscribe, as that is all free and does help me out quite a bit. On top of that, go ahead and comment your favorite silly firearms concept in the comments down below. And if you want to be insanely supportive of the channel, you can also download a 2-week free trial of Aura in the description down below and in the pinned comment. It is a service that I personally use and pay for. They did offer me the free version of it, but because if it's something that I'm going to be recommending, I should probably be using it as a service to make sure that it's actually worth what they're charging for it. So it is something that I actually do personally pay for. Their password manager, VPN, so on and so forth, is very helpful for somebody like me who is chronically online. Now, when it comes to full disclosure on the 12.7 SPR, SBR here, we're going to have to go through that piecemeal as they come up because about half the components were things that I bought and some of them were also sent out to me for free for review, which will eventually get their own separate videos, but we'll bring those up as they come along. Now, getting into the SPR concept in general, or the special purpose rifle, most people probably think of the original Mark 12. The Mark 12 was an 18-inch heavy barrel gun, was designed to be shot suppressed. The barrel profile had a special collar for that Ops 12 suppressor. That's probably what most people come to think of when you say SPR. However, there's of course a ton of different variations, and really anything can fit into that mold. Generally, an SPR is going to have a very strong emphasis on accuracy, volume of fire, distance capabilities, those sorts of things, and other things like being lightweight and portable are usually pushed to the side. Now, most people probably think 16, 18, 20-inch, maybe 22-inch barrels, so on and so forth for their SPRs. This is going to be on the opposite side of that spectrum and is basically as short as possible while still maintaining a very high level of accuracy, a very good volume of fire, and while still being suppressed, albeit with a somewhat mediocre K-can, if I can get this off. Now, getting into the base rifle itself without any of the other attachments or accessories on here, this is based off of a LWRC 12.7. So we have a 12.7-inch heavy barrel on here in the LWRC monoforge upper receiver and handguard kit. If you watched my midweek video that I put out last week, you will definitely seen everything that went into that. So if you want to see that in greater detail, there is like a 25-minute video on that, rebarreling it, so on and so forth. This was originally a 16-inch LWRC that I put down to a 12.7 with one of their 12.7 barrels. It's a very heavy profile barrel, very, very accurate. We'll get into that sort of stuff later on. As far as I'm concerned, the LWRC upper is fantastic. Again, I think I will have a dedicated video on it at some point in the future. You have a 12.7 heavy barrel, very accurate, very capable of maintaining a high volume of fire. We actually did end up melting the suppressor cover on the YHM. This is the Turbo K because I switched off of the Resonator K, which we'll get into that a little bit later on. The handguard is extremely rigid. The upper receiver, their monoforge uppers are very good. The BCG is very good. Charging handle, fantastic. Not really any issues with the LWRC upper. 12.7 is also a fantastic barrel length. You can do just about anything with it, and it does flex fairly well into this fairly silly concept of a mini SPR. Now, getting into the lower receiver, this is a Davidson Defense lower receiver. I believe they sent this out to me quite some time ago for a product that I've completely forgotten about. Everything is completely stock on the lower receiver other than the trigger. The trigger is the RA, the Rise Armament 140, which has a no take-up and about a 4-pound break. It's just a single stage trigger. Very good for precision work, maybe slightly worse than like a Geisley G2S or some of the other nicer triggers out there, but I think I picked it up for like $100 and it does perform quite well. Now, the stock on here, this is the UTG S3 stock, I want to say. It's basically a B5 clone, and it works just fine. It's made in America. I don't really have any complaints for it, and I think they run like $40. So they're pretty cheap. Again, the lower receiver is pretty basic other than a slightly upgraded single stage trigger. Now, right behind the rifle itself in terms of importance when it comes to an SPR or really any setup is going to be the optic itself. In this case, we have a Blackhound Optics 2-12. This is of their Emerge series. So you have a 34mm main tube, 44mm objective lens, and you have Japanese glass on the inside. Now, the reticle that's in here, I'll go ahead and show some of that, is a fairly simple reticle that kind of starts to branch out and give you some more wind holes in, I believe, 1 or 2 MOA increments. For this sort of setup where I'm really only going to be stretching it out to say 600 or 700 yards, big shout out to Hunter's Point Shooting Complex in Humboldt, South Dakota. They let me come in early and do basically whatever I want to do. They have a 600 yard range, and so we were able to take this setup out to 600 yards. 2 to 12 is a perfect mid-range magnification. The only real downside of this scope is that it is extremely heavy. Without the sunshade on it, I believe it's 26 ounces. So you're looking at 27, 28 ounces with the sunshade, 32 ounces with the mount, so 2 pounds on top of your rifle. This is definitely not a lightweight setup, but one of the big downsides of this optic is that it is extremely heavy. You could probably use it as a baseball bat if you so desire. Now, about this scope, they did send it out to me. I believe these run about $1,000, but again, 2 to 12, first focal plane, 34 millimeter main tube, Japanese glass. As far as price range goes, it is a little bit more expensive than what I would personally go for most of the time, but the glass quality and some of the other features on it are quite nice, but do keep in mind that they did send it out to me for free. The mount that it's in is a Primary Arms GLX 34 millimeter mount. Now, these mounts specifically, I believe, are made by Warn, which is the only reason I didn't just buy a Warn mount, is because this one here actually happened to be a little bit cheaper from Primary Arms. Keep in mind that I am a dealer for Primary Arms optics, so the pricing was very good on that. Now, when it comes to the bipod and suppressor, I'm not really an aficionado when it comes to bipods. I've only really ever used a couple. This one is from UTG. This is their UTG Recon Flex, I want to say. It's the 9 to 12 inch version or something like that. You have 3 different positions. So you have, of course, forward, folded, and an intermediate position, and then, of course, all the way down. You, of course, the legs can run all the way out to give you quite a bit of leg room if you need to, if you're shooting uphill or something like that. And, of course, multi-positions, which makes it quite easy. On top of that, you do have a ball joint up here with a adjustable lever, so you can make it really loose if you want to, or you can really crank that guy down and make sure that that is rock solid. As far as cheap bipods go, I think it works quite well, though. Again, keep in mind that I really haven't used that many. I think you can pick these up again for like 50, 60 bucks if they're on sale, which is a very good price for a fully aluminum bipod. It is very stable. It is very durable. I have taken these out to 700 plus yards. The last thing to talk about on the build is the suppressor. This is the YHM Turbo K556 can. So you have a very short can with their adapter and mount. Unfortunately, I've been having a lot of problems with both of their suppressors and mounts in terms of dispersion. So basically, both the Resonator K and Turbo K will about double my group size on most guns, which is not particularly fantastic. Hopefully it's not the suppressor, hopefully it's the mount or the adapter, of course, but I'm going to be swapping all of those out, trying out a bunch of new mounts, adapters, direct threads, comparing them against each other in a big video on the YHM cans. And hopefully I can fix those issues, but it would take a 1.5 MOA group of 69 grain ADI match, and then turn it into about 3 MOA. Again, keep in mind that we're already sacrificing barrel length from a 16, 18-inch barrel all the way down to a 12.7. So I don't want to give up a suppressor, but the fact that both of my suppressors that I own are causing, accuracy issues, let's say, is a bit frustrating, because I do think this concept, if it's viable at all, definitely needs to be suppressed to get the most out of it. Now, talking about performance of the mini SPR here, again, the suppressors really did bring it down in terms of its distance capabilities, because with this setup, again, in the bolt carrier group in here, we have an adjustable gas key. So this is set up for dedicated suppressed shooting. It is very, very soft recoiling. You can shoot very quickly, and the barrel itself is extremely accurate. Again, we'll do 1.5 MOA with just about anything you put through it. But because of the dispersion issues, out to 400 yards, it even started to become an issue. Keep in mind that here in South Dakota, at least as the times that I've been out shooting, I have had to deal with some fairly high wind conditions. But even at 400 yards with good ammunition, again, that 69 grain ADI match, I was having dispersion issues where you'd be hitting left side of the target, right side of the target, so on and so forth, which is a bit frustrating when you're throwing, upwards of $1 downrange at a time. Now, that being said, you take the suppressor off and you double your accuracy, and then I was taking this little 12.7 out to 600 yards without much issue in this exact same setup. minus the suppressor. So again, for this concept to work at all, I do think that it needs to be suppressed to get the most out of that short package. However, because the suppressors that I'm using here are reducing the accuracy to an unacceptable level, you ruin the precision aspect of this build. And again, it is a very accurate system without the suppressor on there. You throw on a suppressor, or at least the specific suppressors that I have, and then you throw away that accuracy benefit. Now you might as well have a much different gun to begin with, and you'll be getting a lot better performance out of it. Now, the main problem with this package, as most of you can probably tell by now, is that it does not conform to SAWC, as Nut and Fancy would say, as you have a 12.7 that weighs over 10 pounds. Now, you could definitely shave off some weight. You could probably, with a different optic setup, cut out about half of the weight of the optic itself, going from about 2 pounds down to about 1 pound with very careful optic and mount selections. With a lighter bipod, maybe a different suppressor, a different barrel for sure. You know, from a 12.7 heavy barrel, you could probably stretch that out to a 13.7 or a 14.5 middleweight profile and end up about the same in terms of weight, but with a couple hundred extra feet per second, depending on the load that you're using, and get a little bit better distance capabilities. Again, with this super short package, it does retain a very, very high level of accuracy, but you are losing a lot of ballistics going down to a 12.7 from, again, a longer 14.5 to 18-inch barrel on a more conventional SPR. Now, this is a much shorter package than those. Even with a suppressor, this is about as long as an 18-inch barrel with like an A2 flash hider on it. So it is still a very short, handy package, so you could definitely use this in like more of a, I don't know, urban environment where maybe you're only going to be shooting out to 200 or 300 yards at max anyways, but you're going to be going through buildings, rooftops, so on and so forth, so you need a shorter package overall, but do not want to sacrifice your precision, so you go with a shorter, very heavy profile barrel. Again, that is a extremely niche use case scenario, and why in general you don't see very short guns, even though 12.7 isn't super short, but it is definitely a shorter gun setup like this for more of a precision application, if you will. Now, all that being said, I do think that the setup is very capable once I figure out the suppressor dispersion issues and how to resolve that down to an acceptable degree. Once I get that sorted out, I do think that the performance is definitely there in a package like this out to 600 yards. However, overall, the concept is just a little bit silly. So, with all that out of the way, guys, let me know what you guys think of my 12.7 mini SPR in the comments down below. Anything that I should change with it, which is probably just about everything, or if there's a setup that makes more sense to you. But with all that out of the way, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. I will see you in the next one. Peace out.